Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Thursday of CEP week. Today, we're going to talk about how to maximize your ISP. So let's get started. Remember, more ISP, it equals more money. So here's an example. Let's suppose you have a school that has a 40% ISP. That's going to translate to 64% free and 36% full price. However, if you go to 50% ISP, you will now have 80% free and 20% full price. So by increasing by 10%, magically, you will now have a 25% increase in your revenue. So it is really worthwhile. You say, well, should I really go after this? Yes, you really should, because as you can see, it's really going to help increase your revenue. So the important thing with maximizing your ISP is to start with clean data. You are probably tied into the district student information systems in some form, whether it's by each individual school or by a district-wide system. And technically, theoretically, all these computer systems match each other. And maybe they do, but maybe they don't. And so you want to be sure that you've identified everything and you're starting out clean. So the first one you might want to look for is, are the students at their correct locations? Especially on a district-wide system, it might take a few days or even longer if a student transfers. And of course, since your ISP is depending on the students, you want to have them be at the right location. Are students who have left the district been removed? I've seen a couple of POS systems where you had to take an extra step to get them out of there. Or like if they had money left in an account or things like that. So you want to be sure that you purged everybody that isn't at the school anymore. Sometimes when you merge these systems, you get like a little printout that says like, this is conflicting data. So this could be like a student ID number that was incorrect, or a birth date that was entered wrong, or something like that. So you want to be sure that you've resolved any identified conflicts that have shown up between the computer systems. But let's suppose that you've done that. The next thing you're going to want to do is extend the status of the students. Now, there's a couple of things that's important to keep in mind. And I had to kind of learn this the hard way, which is to be aware of cultural naming conventions. Because when you're looking at a list of potential matches, sometimes you have to understand how people use their names. This happens in San Diego a lot. And I'm sure it happens in other communities too. Another thing you find out pretty quickly is that addresses and phone numbers aren't always updated by the families. So you may be looking at a household match list by address, and it has McGuire, Rozhenko. And you're thinking one of these things is not like the other. Is Rozhenko actually a member of the McGuire family, or is Rozhenko somebody that lived in that same address before, or maybe the McGuires moved away? You have to kind of sort all those things out when you're doing extending status. Really, if you don't feel comfortable, as I often didn't, calling up and saying, hey, who's this Rozhenko kid in your house? Teachers and office staff members are great resources, because a lot of times they really know what's going on with their families, and they can help you extend the status. And they can say, oh yeah, Rozhenko's the cousin, and they just moved in. You need to try to find everyone. And again, it might seem like a lot of work, but let's think about something. Suppose that you had signed up to go on a field trip, taking 25 third graders to the zoo. God love you. So you took everybody around, saw the zoo, got back to the bus. There was only 24 kids. Now, are you going to say, well, I don't know, 24 is pretty close to 25? That's good enough. Of course, you're not going to do that. You are going to go back in that zoo as fast as you can. You're going to be yelling that kid's name. You're going to be telling the staff members to help you look for this little person. And when you finally find them in the gift shop, fooling around with some silly little toy, you're going to yell your head off at them until you feel better. Because you know how important it is to find everyone. And it's the same thing with these little small groups that need to be included in your ISP. So here's some examples. Foster youth. Children can be removed out of their families really quickly. And so that can change rather on a dime. Homeless families, very hard to get in touch with sometimes. They might be here today, there tomorrow, across the street then. Migrant workers who might only be in the community a short period of time. Runaways who must have such terrible conditions at home that they would rather be on the streets than there. So it's very important that you work with your social workers and your counselors and your liaisons in the district to try to find all of these last little kids and be sure that they're included in your ISP, not just for you, but because they need those services as well. Grouping. CEP has a unique feature in that you can group schools together within a district to increase the ISP. But remember that grouping is kind of like a great big seesaw. So if you have a school that has an ISP that is transferring to another school, it's going to go up and it's going to go down. So you want to be careful that you don't take too much away and end up on the wrong side of the seesaw. There are a number of grouping tools available. No Kid Hungry has one. Meal Count has one. But you're going to find that overall grouping is going to work best at schools that have at least 60% or higher ISP. So here's an example. Let's say you have school A that has 100 students with a 90% ISP. Now, if you multiply 90 times that 1.6, you get 144. They're not going to pay you more than 100%. So, you know, those kids could be grouped with another school and then they might be able to be helped at that school. So you could look at school B that had 500 students with 55% ISP, and they are only being reimbursed at 84%. So if you group those together, look what happens. You have 600 students, and now you've moved the ISP to 61%, and 62.5%, remember, is the magic number to get you to 100. So by regrouping, you've now increased your total reimbursement for your program and taken advantage of that over reimbursement being transferred. Grouping is also kind of dependent on that you have your other schools available in your district. For example, you might have some charter schools or private schools. If you are vending to them, then you don't claim them, so you don't have to worry about it. But if they're being claimed by your district, you're going to have to work with that school to get the needed data on CEP, because first of all, they might be eligible for CEP, or second of all, they might be able to be eligible at a higher level if you can get them grouped in with another school. Another thing is just about every district in the whole world has programs on the school campus that are not part of the school district, technically speaking. So maybe they have a Head Start program, or maybe they have a child care center, or maybe they have an alternative school. You're going to need to investigate what's going on at your district with these particular sites, because different things can be happening. So are you claiming these meals? Are they show up, you feed them? In a lot of cases, you are. Then you need to find out, are these students enrolled as district students or program students? For example, especially with Head Start, they may not be enrolled as a district student, or a child care center. They may not be enrolled as a district student for various reasons that make sense to the people that run these programs. So if they're not in a district, counted as a district student, they're not going to show up on that directly certified report now, are they? No, they're not. So you have to try to see what information you can get, because if you can include them if you're feeding them and you're claiming those meals. So it's a little bit tricky, and it's not quite as good as the regular program, but the best luck that I've heard that people have had is check for extended status. So check and see if the child care center kids have siblings who are in the school district and already qualified. You can extend their status to them. This is something that I hope they'll fix their next go around in Washington, D.C. But right now we got to, work with what is, and you want to try to get as many of those kids that are ISP in your program. And finally, this is something you should be doing pretty often, especially keeping your eye on programs that are close to 40%. You want to be checking all the way through the year to see if they are going up, if they are going down. Try to keep your data clean as much as you can. And you're going to be identifying trends. So don't forget that off your checklist. We have some wonderful resources, again, to help you with maximizing and grouping, and also how to make CEP work with lower ISPs. You can check all of these out at our resources online at No Kid Hungry. We hope you're going to stay in touch with us and sign up for our newsletter and visit our website of best practices. And tomorrow we're going to bring it home, measuring your CEP success, which is related to keeping CEP going. So thanks for coming in, and we'll see you tomorrow.